and played for Mom a couple of times while she was in her hospice bed, and I know, just from watching her face, it was one of the nicest and most calming things that we could have done. So it was wonderful then, and it's equally wonderful now. You're hearing the same music that she was able to play for my mom. Today is my mother's birthday. She would have been 94 today, and so what we wanted to do today was less of a ceremony that's like a funeral and more like a ceremony that's a birthday party. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a celebration of her life. Because her physical self may be gone, but her life is the thing that endures. That's the immortality, and that's the part we're going to celebrate today. And so I welcome you to this birthday party, and after we have a chance to talk and visit about her life, there'll be a reception afterwards. And so some of the things that are going to happen is I have a eulogy, which you'll forgive if I read, because I actually wrote it down so I wouldn't forget anything. And then each of the family members, starting with my oldest sister, Linda, and then Tina, and then my younger sister, Diane, through my wife, Rosemary, will also give some remarks. And then we'll have a video slideshow on her life. And then it'll be an opportunity for you in the audience to offer up any little remembrances or a funny story you might have. And you'll wander around with a microphone, and you'll have a chance to think about what you might want to say for a few minutes. And we'll do that for a little while. And then if you have other memories, you can share those later on in the reception that will occur afterwards. So I will get started right now. Oh, and I have to, in order to get started, I have to bring out some props. Set those there. Like that. Okay. If you look in front here, you see a flame. It offers warmth, it offers energy. The heat of a flame can generate steam, it can burn gasoline, it runs the engines that support our lives. And it keeps out the cold and provides a place where people can gather in safety and from the world outside. It offers light to banish the darkness and illuminate our path at night. It's a powerful friend. Yet even as we appreciate its power, we also know that that power is the source of its eventual end. The flame burns bright, but it consumes itself in the process. We're stronger for having it to warm us. We're more understanding for having it to guide us. And we're sad when that light finally goes out. Next to it is a rock. It is solid and immutable. Tie a rope to it and it can be an anchor against the currents of adversity. If you round and square its edges, it can be the building block for a great structure. But its value resides in its strength and its dependability. The world around this rock can change, but the rock will remain constant and solid. Something that you can know. Something you can rely on. Something that doesn't change. I brought these two items today because they represent for me the symbols of my mother's life. She was a flame of warmth and energy and light to all who knew her. Her passion ran deep and wide, and no one who knew her could miss the intensity of her belief in truth and honesty. She was a rock of reliability and consistency. She prided herself on knowing what she wanted to do and ensured that it was done right. If she told you she would do it, it was as good as done. And these values were with her all her life. Abby Ladine Mount was born November 21st, 1921, in Pea Ridge, Arkansas. Now that's a tiny community just across the border from Missouri, deep in the heart of the Ozarks. And she had an older brother, Austin, an older brother, Elizabeth, and a younger brother, Walter Dale, who died when he was 3, as often happened at that time. Her father, Walter, and her mother, Verba, moved the family to Joplin when she was 5, and the Mount family, being relatively poor, had a relatively hard life. But young Ladine was already beginning to exhibit the fire that would dominate her life. To quote her own words, "As I grew older, my obsession was to make the best grades in my class. I did pretty well. I skipped the 2nd grade and the 5th grade. And even though I was 2 years younger than my classmates, I still had the obsession to the best in my class. And it nearly drove my mama nuts." About this time, an event happened that affected her so strongly, she referred to it often as one of the primary reasons for her passionate commitment to integrity and reliability. Her grade school class was instructed to write an essay at home and bring it to class for review and grading the next day. The topic of the essay is long lost, but suffice it to say, my mother threw herself into the assignment and produced an essay she was exceptionally proud of. Upon delivering the essay to class, she was told she had flunked the assignment and was given an F on the paper. Why? She asked her teacher. You could not have possibly written this essay, the teacher declared. It is simply too good for someone of your age and your intelligence. On that day, my mom learned that prejudice is an ugly and indiscriminate thing, capable of consuming the innocent and the hardworking with its myopia. She also learned that trust and integrity are the only things of lasting value in our lives, and she was determined to never allow her integrity or her honesty to ever be questioned again. It was a value she also emphasized to her children from the start and reinforced every chance she got. But when you're young, it's a hard lesson to appreciate. Believe me, I know. At the age of 16, Ladine entered the 1939 Fiesta Queen competition and won. A few months later, she was crowned the Ozark Smile Girl for 1939 and traveled to New Orleans to compete in the Southern Belle contest. She didn't win, but she did have a memorable time drinking champagne and dancing the rumba with a senior from Tulane. At 18, she met Eugene Pryor, a dashing young man from Carterville, Missouri, and they both knew something special was happening. He proposed to her on Valentine's Day, 1941, and being impatient with waiting for their official wedding on the 27th of June, they eloped secretly to Oklahoma on May 3rd. Their real marriage certificate, their later one, is framed and outside on display. The attack on Pearl Harbor 5 months later threw everything into uncertainty. Dad joined the Navy in 1942, eventually serving on an aircraft carrier in the Mediterranean. Mom followed him as long as he was stateside, but eventually moved back to Arkansas to be with her parents and her newborn daughter, Linda. After the war, Dad returned home and the family grew to include my older sisters, Tina and Diane, and I came along in 1951. After the family moved to Kansas City, Missouri. Dad used the GI Bill to finance his education in architecture, and Mom saved enough money from teaching school to make a down payment on a house, the house we grew up in. In addition to being the year I was born, 1951 was also the year 2 of my sisters contracted polio. My middle sister was hit by a car, and Kansas City suffered a terrible flood. Mom always said it was a tough year, and I always wondered if I being born after Christmas was the icing or the punchline. Our family moved to New York in 1964 so Dad could be closer to his work, flying all over the world to work on airports for Transworld Airlines. Mom, still with a fire of soul, went to work for a national marketing research company as an office manager, but quickly worked her way up to being the primary representative for several national research clients. In fact, I remember flying with her to London in 1967 to open an office there. But as Mad Men has shown us, Mom quickly hit the glass ceiling, which was never something that sat well with her. So she opened her own marketing research company, Marstadt Marketing Research, and brought some of her clients with her. Now, this was the early 70s. So for a woman opening a professional company, especially a national company, it was a rare thing. But for Mom, it just seemed like the natural thing to do. Solid and immutable, she just made it work. By 1977, 2 of her children were living on the West Coast here in Eugene. Dad had retired from architecture and entered the life of being an eccentric inventor, and Mom decided Marstadt could operate from any city that had a post office and a telephone service, so they moved from New York to Eugene, and they never looked back. But the old flame wouldn't rest. Mom could look around the country and see things to do and things that needed doing. One of her connections was with United Way of Lane County, where in the early 90s she developed with Priscilla Gould the first United Way Community Needs Assessment. Her commitment to integrity ensured that the results of the study would have high acceptance in the community and ensured that this assessment study would be repeated every other year for the next 20 years. She did an enormous amount of work on each study and only charged for the interviewer costs, the tabulation, the printing. Everything else she did for free. Another connection was with Serenity Lane, where she joined the board but quickly became the chair of its marketing committee, where she provided support and research services for many years. She even got me involved for a while, which was a lot of fun. My dad died in 1998, and Mom always felt that half her life and half her soul went with him. She went on with life in community service, but the fire for her had grown a little less bright. But for her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, however, the fire seemed just as bright, and the warmth was as comforting as it could ever be. Everyone who came in contact with my mom went away with a little bit of that light. Her smile was infectious. Her humor was sharp as a tack. She never suffered fools, but she also never said a harsh word to anyone. She was solid in the face of criticism and passionate in her defense of what she believed was right. She was our rock and she was our light, and those things don't ever really go away. They live on in me and in my family, and in all the people who have ever had the pleasure to share her company. And in her own way, she'd like that more than anything. Thank you. Now is an opportunity for each of my sisters to come up and say a few words as well. And the first one up is my oldest sister, Linda.
Welcome, all of you, to my precious mother's birthday party. Chris mentioned that when I was newborn and we lived in Pea Ridge, she taught school. And the thing that she taught was so near and dear to her. She taught English and English literature. And she instilled a great love in all of us for English and for English literature. And she didn't allow us to be grammatically incorrect. And one of the things that she and my father both loved was a poem called The Desiderata. And so I would like to share that with you today in her behalf. Go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly. Listen to others, even the dull and ignorant, for they too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexations to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain and bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career. However humble, it is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself. Especially do not feign affection. Neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune. But do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, the universe is unfolding as it conceive him to be. And whatever your labors and your aspirations, in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace with your soul, with all its sham, drudgery, and confusion. And broken dreams, it's still a beautiful world. Be cheerful. Strive to be happy. Thank you.
I'm Christy. I'm Lydine's granddaughter. I'm Tina's daughter, and those of you who know my mom. See, and I'm getting up for you because this is so hard for you. No one can understand the depth of a mother's love for her child, nor the depth of a child's love for their mother. I'm a representation of that. Certainly I love my mother, and I love my grandmother like she was a mother. I've never lived without my grandmother. But except for a few fleeting moments in my mother's 68 years, she's never lived without her mother. Her mother has been her light and her rock, has been her mommy and her best friend. So, as she is deeply, deeply grieving right now, what you need to know is the depth of her grief is the magnitude of her love. That it's only through that depth of love that we share this. And on the way over here, we were talking about it. And you know, we wouldn't change one thing, would we, Mom? Wouldn't change one moment or one day of it with her to get rid of this pain, because the pain and the grief is worth, the sorrow is worth every moment of love that we ever received from her. And so, as we need to keep all of the kids and the grandkids and everybody that Grandma touched in your hearts, my job now is to take care of my mom and let my mom take care of me, because the person who took care of us is now with her mom. So, I love you.
Our sister Diane lives in Florida, and thankfully she and her husband Mike planned to be here today for the big celebration that we were planning. And when it became clear that she should come sooner than that, thankfully she did, and she was able to be here, and at a time when Lidine recognized her, and we're all really grateful for that. But after Lidine passed away, Diane needed to go home to her own children and family, and so she asked me if I would read some recollections of her own. And so what I have is a letter that she wrote her mother in 2007, and then a memory from a trip they took together. So let me read this to you. Dear Mom, I so loved being with you and talking to you today about my life and yours, your life and mine. You are always eager to exchange perspectives, and I love that about you. You are so multifaceted that at times it blows my mind. I look at you as my mother, our mother, owner of a major business, wife, and lover of a man you knew for nearly 60 years. And if that weren't enough, you are an incredible poet. Yes, I read every poem I could find tonight, most I'd never seen before. I was touched by your observations and feelings and the way you expressed each one of them. Now I stare at the large photo of you and Daddy, which hangs over my bed. and I am truly humbled by the joy and enthusiasm you show for each other, even after so many years. I know it's hard for you now, Mom. I can't imagine really how hard it is, except as I too remember my own loss of Daddy. But I know for you the loss is much different. You had so much time together, so many memories. Because of all that, I know it's worse for you, even now. I really understand that, Mom. But if I or any of us can make things easier for you, that's exactly what we want to do. We all love you so much and want you to be happy. I love you, Diane. Mom was an amazing woman of many talents, including humor, which could range from droll to downright raunchy, even in her 90s. And she loved to be on stage, whether lip syncing, It's in the Book, or playing Moonbeam McSwine in Little Abner for our church. In 1976, Mom and I, Diane, went to Yucatan and Cancun. On the way crossing the Yucatan Peninsula, our tour bus out of Chichen Itza never came. We waited several hours and finally we were able to hire two locals, Raoul and Ruben, who spoke no English, to drive us to Cozumel. The trip took a couple of hours over backcountry dirt roads. I had had a couple of beers and felt confident we would ride in one piece. Mom was madly whispering to me the entire time that these boys knew how much money we were carrying and would surely rape and leave us to die somewhere. We finally arrived around midnight, safe and sound. Years later, we had a good laugh over the whole thing. We all had our own special relationship with Mom. She comforted us, sang to us, sparred with us, and loved us dearly. I will love you and miss you forever, Mom.
We can't have a proper birthday party if we don't tell stories about the person whose birthday it is. So we just want to take a couple of minutes, and we have a microphone that we're going to teach you. And if you have a little funny story or remembrance about my mom, we can take a couple of minutes and tell it. We're beginning to draw a party to a close before we can enjoy the refreshments, but we do want to have a chance to say a couple of stories. I will tell the first one, just to get the ball rolling. You can remember when we were kids, we used to be pretty rambunctious, and we were sitting at the dinner table one day, and we were trying to get peanut butter out of a jar to put on some bread to make a sandwich. And one or the other of us, doesn't matter which one, was being a little too loud and noisy with the knife in the peanut butter jar, and my mother had just had enough. And so she grabbed the peanut butter jar away, and she grabbed the knife away, and she said, "Don't you know that's not the way to get peanut butter out of a jar?" And she broke the bottom of the peanut butter jar. And peanut butter spilled all over the table. So the four of us, being young as we were just ready to wet our And she looked at us with that look. She said, "If any one of you laughs, I'm going to take you to the back bedroom and spank you." So one by one, we had to excuse ourselves to go to the bathroom so that we can have a good laugh. We all wound up in the bathroom laughing. But that's my funny story. Who else remembers a funny story?
I got one.
I'm Christina's husband, and I remember the first time I met Ladine, or very shortly thereafter, she had a Berlinetta, which was like a Camaro, and she loved this car, and I remember very shortly upon being on the scene, she told me, "That's my car, and it's fast." She was always, in a southern accent, she kind of had it, "It's fast," you know, I don't know, she used to say it. So, it was many years later, I think it was in the early 2000s, I had acquired a new little sports car. It was a 30-year-old Porsche, and it was a Targa, and the top came out, and she said, "When am I going to go for a ride?" And so it was in the evening time, and it was in the summer, and it was sunny, and we said, "Well, let's take the top down, and we'll go for a ride." And we're going out, I think it was Lorraine Highway, and the sun's just beautiful, and her silvery hair is I'm trying to make it lively, and this car has a nice kind of song to it, the engine, and kind of unique. And she looks over to me and she said, "Is that all this thing has?"
I've got one more. So I'm Rosemary, I'm Chris's wife. Chris and I, some of you know us well know we didn't court very long before we leaped into getting married 37 years ago. We met in June and he proposed, no, we met in March and he proposed in June. And his mom and dad moved to Oregon that summer. We decided we were going to get married in August, and I can't remember when they got to Oregon. All I knew is you can deduce from all you've seen today that Ladine was a very dynamic woman, and her reputation and her level of expectations preceded her. And so when I was to meet Ladine for the very first time, I dug into my boxes and I found my high school graduation diploma, my baccalaureate degree, my master's degree, every medal I ever won doing anything, like coloring the best, and I brought them with me.
What did she say? What did
True
she
story.
say?
I'll tell you later.
My mother moved in with us later in her life because she needed the extra care. And she and my husband developed a very interesting relationship. They were very close and very loving, but he's a Republican. And she said, well, in my opinion, that's Satan incarnate. They sparred back and forth about, heaven forbid, religion and politics over and over every single day. She asked me one time after she'd gone to her foster care, she says, well, does Jim miss me? And I said, yes, indeed he does, because I won't argue with him about politics. So they had this wonderful special relationship, but later, it was just a few days before she passed, and she had lost, because she had a stroke, she'd lost the use of the right side of her face and her right side. And my husband came in to see her. She left one eye closed. She opened the other eye and stuck her tongue out. Side of her mouth. In true mom fashion.
Sounds like her.
Yes.
Any other stories?
I got one. So, for those of you who know me, I am her great-grandson, and her son and his son. It's a really great way to introduce myself. And I think when I was 6 or 7, I went for a ride with great-grandma, and we went to Gateway Mall, which is sketchy now. The whole thing, we were going through, and there was a kiosk, and at this kiosk they were selling hermit crabs. And I don't know how many of you know what hermit crabs are, but they're small, they're about this big, and you can paint their shells because they'll live in just about anything, and they are mean. They will pinch you, they will run away from you, they will hide in your pantry. And I wanted one, I thought they were fantastic, so I asked, I was, great grandma, can I have a hermit crab? And she was like, why not? Because that it seemed like a great idea. But she wasn't going to have to take care of it. So we brought home in this little Chinese food takeout box a hermit crab with a little bit of food, and it had a tiger painted shell. And I remember we put it in a bowl, and I did not know how to take care of this hermit crab. And to this day, I don't know if that hermit crab was disposed of, or if what I was told happened actually happened. Because I was told that it ran away. I think it actually did, because I think a couple years ago when we were moving out of that house, I'm pretty sure I found its body in the very back of our pantry. But I don't know, that might have been something else. I think that was the story. But so that was my story.
In 1969, and from then until 1976, Tina and our kids, who are all here today, lived in New York, about a mile from where Gene and Ladine lived. And I don't know how it got started, but I had some sort of a mental fart. Within a day or two of the time when I arrived, they started calling her an old bag, and she started calling me Raincoat Head. Neither one of us were very bright about that kind of thing. But we were both competitive with each other in the most loving way. And outside of my immediate wife and kids, she was my best friend for 7 years. That's about it.
That's good.
I have a really short, silly one. Hi, I'm Marty Black, and I worked with Ladine for close to 25 years, and as I said, this is really silly, and I'm not sure if it justifies the microphone, but I went into the office one day, and Ladine was really kind of agitated, and she said, I just hate it when people do not leave the toilet lid down. Not the seat, but the lid. And so we had a conversation about it, and just to illustrate the impact that Ladine has always had on me for the rest of my life so far. Anytime I go in or out of the bathroom, I have to look to see if the lid is there.
That was the kind of effect she had.
That's right.
I'm Larry Bradley. I didn't meet Ladine until she was in her 70s. Until I read this, I thought, I didn't realize she was the queen of, the Fiesta Queen and the Ozark Smile Girl. But I had the pleasure of serving with her on Serene Lane's board for more than 10 years. And she, this isn't a funny story, but she made a huge difference in the lives of many people. She was a marketing specialist, but her skills got people who needed help into Serenity Lane, and there are a lot of miracles in our community today because of what she chose to do, how she chose to donate her time. So I feel blessed to have known her.
Oh, Wendy.
Well, I wanted everybody to know the first time that I met Grandma. And I asked her what I should call her, and she said, well, your family, you can call me Grandma. But it was at our wedding breakfast, and Linda was introducing me, and I hoped I hit it pretty well, but I wasn't nervous until at our wedding breakfast. So I didn't eat anything. I hid most of the time in the bathroom, came out, pretended that I was good, and then ran back to the bathroom. So Linda pulled me aside, introduced me to Grandma and Grandpa, and she takes a look at me, and she gives me this very stern glare, and I'm like, okay. And she's like, I hope you know that you're marrying one of my favorite people. And I looked at her, and I was like, cool, he's one of mine too. And she gives me a really big hug. She's like, you'll fit right into this family. So I was like, I guess that was a test, but I'm like, she made me feel welcome, and she was always warm. And at one point in time, we had met in Bend, and Andrew was a baby, and I told her that when I look at everything I have, I wouldn't have what I have if she wasn't there. And when I see my daughter, who just had our first grandchild, and the very first thing that she said, after the chaos settled down, was, I want to get a picture with Ian and great grandma, because, I want to be able to show him where he came from. And, it was really important for me to let my children know that they came from a very strong, wonderful family, and they didn't get a chance to meet Grandpa, but they all channel his humor. So, like those of you who remember Grandpa's humor, my boys have it in spades. So, they're constant reminders of what a wonderful woman she is, and I feel very blessed to be welcomed into this family.
Hi, I'm Jim. I'm Linda's husband.
she depended on me to take her to a lot of her meetings and appointments and different things. And she did have, moving along, she did have a love for fast cars. And I remember her driving skills were starting to deteriorate. And I fixed the garage door and the side of her car a few times. She'd like to exchange a little paint back and forth. But I remember one time she pulled out of the garage, and instead of hitting the road, she pulled up the sidewalk. And I was in the passenger seat. And we headed down the road. She lived on a hill. It just missed the car that was parked in front. And we got about halfway down the road, almost to Mozzie's. And I told her, I said, you need to pull the car over and either let me out or let me drive. Being the strong-willed person that she was, it wasn't until we got to Albertsons that she pulled into the parking lot. And from that time on, I did the driving, but anyway, she was a character, never a dull moment, and a lot of great memories.
I'm Wendy Boyd, and I worked with Levine for 10 years, I guess, really, but no longer. I started in 1980. She shared her family with me. I didn't really have family here, and she shared her family with me. We got a new printer when we were over in the office near the river. We got a new printer. And we came to work the next day, and Ladine had sat on the printer the night before, and she was so excited, and took a picture of her butt.
She did.
She did, yeah. And the other thing I want to say is, when Jean died, I said this too. I could always tell when Jean was talking to his kids on the phone, because Jean's voice changed, and it had such love in it. And you could just tell that it was a kid or a grandkid. It was, it was a different voice. And Ladine loved you guys so much. And I just think that you really were lucky. You really lucked out.
We were very much. I think what we'll do now is, if you have other stories to share, I would encourage you to share them while we enjoy some time together and some refreshments in the back. But before we do that, we do want to have a little closing benediction, and Jim is going to give that, and then we'll be able to have our reception.
Our kind and gracious Father in heaven, at this time, we share our appreciation for the opportunity to get together and enjoy the celebration of life for Abby Levine Pryor. We pray as we go forth in our lives that her memories will be part of our heart and our mind. And as we recall her, it will bring a smile to our face and strengthen us in doing good things and finding happiness in the things we do. We're grateful for all of you that have joined us today, and we ask that the Lord will protect you as you travel, as you arrive at your various destinations safely. And we ask these favors and blessings in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
Thank you all for coming. It was a wonderful birthday party. I especially like the stories. I'm sure you have other stories. So I encourage you to share them. And for now, let's repair out and enjoy some more stories and some more refreshments. Thank you.